I want to begin by again thanking our colleague and American icon, John Lewis, who has not only inspired our entire nation, but been such an extraordinary leader in the civil rights movement and really the conscience of the House, and brought that same passion to our effort to protect the American people from the ravages of gun violence. I also want to thank my colleague Catherine Clark and John Larson, who are such an important part of this effort, and the night watchman, Congressman Steve Israel from the great state of New York, for his work in the most difficult late hours of the night. We're now approaching 22 hours, 23 hours. Many of us have been here all throughout the night. But what this effort has really done is ignited the passions of our caucus, the passions of our country, and really, I think, renewed our spirit to work together and work relentlessly to address the issue of gun violence in this country. We have all grown very tired of moments of silence and inaction.
Will the gentleman yield for a colloquy?
Certainly.
Now, the gentleman from Rhode Island, you and I took a moment to go outside and speak to those individuals from across the country who showed up and stayed overnight in the rain. And what did you hear from them when we just went out there and greeted them?
What the individuals who have joined this effort on the grounds of the Capitol, and the numbers have grown, and now there's even a group that was out there in the pouring rain, and they said, "We will be in this fight with you. We're here because we believe this is a very important issue for our country. We believe in the fight that you've undertaken. We stand with you. Don't give up. Keep fighting."
And we talked to someone from Newtown, and a constituent of Congresswoman Esty, and you just have to imagine the hope that that person can finally have after years of seeing so much inaction with hundreds of other people, and to see over 100 members of our caucus have the courage to finally sit down because the Republicans will not stand up.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that you hear, both from the folks that have been rallying outside and from people who have been calling our offices, people have begun to wonder, does our government actually function anymore? Overwhelmingly, they support universal background checks. Overwhelmingly, they support this very simple idea of preventing terrorists from having access to firearms. And despite that overwhelming public support, you can't seem to get Congress to move on those bills. And I really do wonder, is anybody in this building fighting for us, fighting on this very important issue? I think what we demonstrated tonight is that we recognize the urgency of this issue, and we're prepared to use every maneuver and tactic and strategy we can to put pressure on our Republican colleagues to enact common sense gun safety legislation.
That's right. What our constituents have told us outside or last night in the gallery and over social media is that you are in the most powerful place in the free world. Yet, for the last few years, you have been powerless. And that changes today. This is a new day. And that changes. Mr. Cicilline, I'm wondering, this is a new day. And last night, Cicilline, I'm wondering, our Republican colleagues sat, I counted them, just 20 steps away from courage. About 20 steps away they sat from this podium, and you, and Mr. Garamendi, and others invited them down. Just tell us why you don't believe that someone on the terrorist watch list should be prevented from buying a firearm. And no one took that walk. I got pretty good advice from Vice President Biden when I first got elected. Pretty good advice from Vice President Biden when I first got elected. He had a dinner with a few members, and he said, never question another person's motives, but you're always allowed to question their judgment. Now, there's a lot of evidence about what motivates members to not get behind this legislation. And we've talked a lot about the influence of the NRA. whether that is the reason or it's not the reason, we can question their judgment. And leadership is defined by what you do in moments like this. Whether you came down to the well and stood up for the gun violence victims, or rather you sat over there and read the newspaper or heckled us. It's about your judgment and history's judgment. And history will look kindly upon those who stood up for the 30,000 victims a year. And history will look poorly upon those who said nothing. And I'm wondering, how did you feel when you saw so few, and by few I mean zero, come forward?
And you know, what was stunning was to hear you, Mr. Garamendi, beg our Republican colleagues, come to the floor, tell us, tell the American people.
Background checks that keep guns out of the hands of criminals, suspected terrorists, domestic abusers. What is your argument not to make sure every single sale of a gun includes a background check? Explain to us why you think it's okay to have an individual on the suspected terrorist list go into a gun store and buy a gun. Thousands have already done it. Explain to us why you oppose these common sense proposals that will improve the safety of our communities and protect our constituents. Engage with us. Debate it. Tell us what you think. Let the American people see it. Vote on it. Bring those bills to the floor so we can have a vigorous debate and we can understand your arguments. And not one had the courage to walk to that podium and begin to articulate. And you know why? Because their arguments are indefensible. There are no arguments. And so what did they do? Well, the American people slept at about 2:30 in the morning. They used a very clever procedural maneuver, and they adjourned.
They went home.
They went home. They walked out on all of these victims and thousands of other victims of gun violence, and they went home, and they refused to discuss the issue, to bring the bills to the floor for a vote, to do anything to address the epidemic of gun violence in this country. And I can think of nothing more disrespectful to the people they serve and to the people of this country than what the Republican Party did tonight.
And you know, Mr. Cicilline, you and I and some of the other newer members, I know you're in your third term, I'm in my second, we talk a lot about working in a bipartisan way, and sometimes people say, well, you're being naive. This place can't work in a bipartisan way. But when Steve Israel talked about being on the Capitol steps after September 11th, it took me back to when I was a 20-year-old here as an intern working for Congresswoman Ellen Tauscher, and seeing Republicans and Democrats together on those steps, taking actions to uphold our highest responsibility, protecting the American people. Our highest responsibility, protecting the American people. And so after Newtown, and after Aurora, and after San Bernardino, and after Orlando, and so many in between, you wonder, why aren't we standing together? Because these tragedies, they call upon Republicans and Democrats, just as we did after September 11th, to come together. And what we have put out there, as you have pointed out, is not to go out and collect everyone's guns. We just believe that the most dangerous people should be denied the most dangerous weapons. And that if you are on a terror watch list and you can't get on a plane, then you should not be able to buy a gun.
And I wonder, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I wonder, when we saw a colleague of ours, Gabby Giffords, shot, when we saw 20 first graders at Sandy Hook Elementary School.
This will be the moment that our colleagues will find the courage to come together and work with us to stem this violence. And then Orlando, 49 young people in a nightclub, enjoying and dancing and enjoying a sense of community, slaughtered by an assault weapon. And you wonder, what will it take? What will it take to cause our Republican colleagues to work with us, to find common ground. We have 2 proposals. These are simple answers, just universal background checks. Keep individuals who are on the terrorist watch list, too dangerous to get on a plane, prevent them from buying guns. Let's start with the easy ones. And I hope tonight, this last 23 and some, almost 24 hours, will be a call to action for our country, because we need that outside mobilization that we're seeing on social media, outside the Capitol, to really keep the pressure on this body to do the right.
How proud are you of our caucus?
Incredibly proud. We've been here almost 24 hours. What has struck me in this debate is the passion and the integrity and the intellect and the experience of all of our colleagues who have talked about this issue and felt it deeply, spoken about it so eloquently for the last full day. And I think we have remained unified, not only in what we think we need to do, but as importantly, unified in our very deep commitment to stay in this fight till we get it done for the American people.
Thank you.
Thank
With
you.
that, I yield back.
And I yield back.
Great.